Hello there. Welcome to another one of my beginner wet shaver tutorials or videos. Today I want to talk about shaving brushes and not specifically how to choose one. There's a lot of options, but different characteristics or different ways that I've seen that they might differ or might be the same, and understand that all of these videos are my opinion through my own experience. There's going to be a lot of personal preference involved in wet shaving. Wet shaving is one of the most preference driven hobbies you'll ever get into, and it's one of the most opinion driven hobbies you'll ever get to. You should know that right off, because there's a lot of guys that are going to come on YouTube and they're going to come on the pages, the Facebook pages and groups and stuff like that, and present their opinion or their preference as fact. No. But anyway, so to get that out of the way, understand this is my opinion and my preference through my experience. All of these videos. And I'm hoping that my experiences will help you on your journey. So when we start talking about brushes for traditional shaving, there are four main types. There's some variations within those four types, but there are four main types. The first one that I would mention is a standard boar brush. This is boar bristle, boar hair, boar as in pig. It's a natural bristle brush, and they generally come in two different types. They come in a natural blonde type fiber, and then they come in a fiber like this that they dyed a band in the center of it there to make it look a lot more like a 3-band silver tip badger brush, and we'll get into badger next. But in my general experience, this is the better knot than this, because there are different grades of boar knots, and most companies won't tell you what the grade is. Simog, you can find information. This is a Simog brush. Now there's another company. Hold on. There's another company called Omega that makes shaving brushes as well. And they're fantastic brushes as well. I just like the wooden handles and the styling and feel of the Simogs. They feel more quality than these do. But these are fantastic brushes, and they are the brush that many Italian barbers use. Boar is unique among all the brushes, in my opinion, and the reason for it is that these bristles have to be soaked. If you don't soak them, they can break off. These bristles engorge themselves with water and swell up. And what you want to do is you want to soak them for like 10 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes before you shave, so that the hairs swell up with water, and that way as you shave, what happens is the very tips of the brush will split if the boar hair that they're using is of a quality that it will do that, and the brush becomes softer and softer. Remember I said there were different grades? Well, this brush, I've had, as long as I've had this, within a few months, and it has never gotten any softer, because this is a stiffer, a lesser quality knot. And remember I said most boar brush companies don't tell you the grade of boar that's in their brushes. Samogue, you can find information online that will help you determine the grade of hair that's in a Samogue. And it's worth looking at because that particular knot right there, I've got it in several brushes, is slamming good. But a boar has a stiff loft. I mean, you look at that. I'm not being gentle with that. I'm hitting that sucker. You don't see it splaying out, and I'm pushing down with a lot of force. Okay. They're very stiff, as opposed to something like a synthetic, okay, or even a badger brush. They're very stiff. They hold water well. And that's one of the things that when you first start lathering, a lot of beginners make a mistake. People tell you you need a damp brush but not a soaking wet brush, and use all different kinds of ways to try to get the point across about how much water you need in a brush. And as we start a lathering tutorial, I'll explain more how to deal with that. But what this a lot of times will lead to is a shaver that is new that will have too dry of a brush, and then they have difficulty lathering. I think with a boar brush you get a little bit of a safety in it because the bristles engorge themselves with water, and so it will hold water more than other brushes do, and there's less of a tendency to get this brush too dry. But you can do it. So they require a break-in. When they are new, it's a natural bristle, and it takes a while for the knot to break in, splay a little bit, the tips to split, and the knot to get softer and whatnot. And some people find kind of a off-putting smell in them before they're broken in, when they're brand new, and they do all kinds of things to the brush to get the smell out. Dude, it ain't that bad. Put some shaving soap on it, some strong smelling shaving soap on it, and let it break in naturally. That's my preference, my opinion, and my advice. So, boar brush. And then the next brush that I think is most popular, although not as much now. Now the synthetic is pretty prevalent as well. All of these brushes are good brushes. I have a preference for the badger brush. Now this is Simpson's Best Badger. This is a silver tip knot. You can buy brushes that say Best Badger on them from a lot of different manufacturers. It's not the same knot. It won't be as soft as this. There will be some scratchiness and scritchiness in that knot. The thing about a silver tip, and this is a badger, you know those tough little suckers you see on like the nature channels that even the bears don't want to fool with? That's what this is made out of. Okay, the hair off of one of them. Most of them are sourced in China. People can say what they want. Simpson and a few other manufacturers get the raw hair and make their own knots, and there's something to that. There's an art to that and all of that. But most badger hair, regardless of who sells it to you, it comes from China. So now that we've cleared that up, badger, the one thing that I would tell you is don't buy pure badger brushes. You can get a cheap pure badger brush for like $15 or $20 off of Amazon or eBay. It will be a wimpy, no backbone, which means it'll splay like crazy. When you get it wet, it'll flop over. It'll have no backbone. It'll be scritchy and scratchy. If you use it a lot in one setting, you'll get what's known as brush burn off of it. It will be difficult to lather soaps with, and the hair start falling out of it, 2 days after you get it. do not buy Pure Badger. The only company that I would say Pure Badger's okay in is a company called Kent, and they're like $250, $300. Well, I think you can get a Pure Badger one for like $150, something like that. Kent is a high quality maker, and their Pure Badger is not the same stuff. But as a rule, with a Badger brush, $50 and up. For a manufacturer, you can get handmade shaving brushes with a Virginia Shing. That's a silver tip knot dealer on Amazon and eBay and probably AliExpress, and that are fantastic 3-band Badgers. I've got several, but this one right here, that's a slamming knot. Ain't a single thing wrong with this knot. It's absolutely beautiful, feels fantastic, and you will not find, although a bore will come close broken in, a good bore, anything that feels better on your face than a really nice silver tip Badger brush, in my opinion. Now, these you don't really have to soak. Hold on a minute. But you need to wet it good. I generally soak all my brushes just because I like to. Even if they don't require soaking, I want the hairs to warm up so that the brush is nice and warm on my face. Okay. But if I don't soak one of these, I'll run it under water for 20 or 30 seconds, hot water, until I'm pretty sure that the hairs are good and wet before I go to use it. But these are fantastic. They lather wonderfully well. Some of them can hog lather. In other words, they can hold on to lather inside. I've never had any problem getting the lather out of them. I'll either add a little bit more water to them, or I'll take the brush and kind of squeeze it up a little bit to lather. Okay. A lot of stuff that happens with brushes and blades and razors and soaps and stuff like that, if you just use a little bit of common sense, okay, you can work around them and make the stuff do what it's supposed to do. And part of wet shaving is that you've left cartridge razors and electric razors that have the built-in angle in that you can stand at a sink and sleep and shave yourself, okay, and you've gone to an art form that requires technique, not just with the razor, but with the brush, with the soap, or even with your post-shave, after-shave, and stuff like that, okay? And so you've gone from something that's automatic and doesn't have any art to it to something where the hand that guides it and the brain that uses it are paramount, and that's the draw of it. But Badgers are fantastic brushes. These are my preference over any brush out there, although you see I've got all different kinds. These are my preference because they're flipping soft as a baby's kiss. If you get a good silver tip knot, they lather really well. If you get the right knot, they got a good backbone. Okay, they're just incredibly good for what you're doing, which is shaving your face, lathering your face up. And so they are my favorite. Okay, and a lot of what we're talking about is there's a lot of people, well, I'll get into that later, but a lot of what we're talking about is how a difference in use, the way that you use the brush, or like, okay, the Badger doesn't need to be soaked, the board does, that kind of deal. Okay, the third brush that I'll talk about is the synthetic. Now this is a Plisson, the Maison de Barbier, acrylic handled Plisson brush with an original Plisson knot. Now this is a synthetic knot. This is basically, have you seen your mom's makeup brush? Well, that looks a lot like one of those knots, don't it? Okay, I think when it started out, that's what they did, is they took a knot similar to that and stuck it in a brush. But these are wonderful. There are several different kinds. This particular knot, although everybody complains, it doesn't have any backbone, and it's not very dense, and yada yada yada. This is my favorite synthetic knot. There's a bunch of different kinds. Okay, a lot of your shaving vendors, people like Maggards and Italian Barber, and they have their own brand of in-house synthetic brushes, cheap, like $10. Okay, with Plisson style knots. Okay, that they have made denser, with a higher loft, but stiffer, more spring. A lot of it has to do, believe it or not, with not the denseness of the brush, but the fact that there's a big fat glue knot here. But I digress. But these are wonderful brushes as well. They just don't come as close to this as I would like. And the purpose of them was to make this better, in my opinion. You can't make that any better, but that's personal opinion. But there are other types. I have one, I don't even know what it is. It was called a Lights knot by the man that sold it. But it's very much like the Plisson knot, just different coloration. Very much the same kind of density, and it is really, really close to this knot. But I don't think you can find this one anymore. There's also, I believe this is an original Uber Soft. This is K-Shave Works, handmade. Okay, I believe this is an Uber Soft. There's a Uber Soft, Uber Soft 2, and I think probably a 3 and 4 by now. I don't know. But there's a ton of different types of synthetic knots. They're all pretty darn good. This is a fantastic brush. It has a lot more backbone than any of these. It feels a lot, for all intents and purposes, like a good silver tip on my face, in my opinion. Yet, for some reason, for a synthetic brush, I still prefer that knot. The thing about the synthetics is they don't hold water. Okay? You can soak this for 3 hours, it won't soak up any water. The bristles will get wet, but when you go like this, or when you shake it, the water's going to come out of this brush. And this is a popular brush now for beginning wet shavers, because you can get one for $10 or $15, and they're fantastic on the face. They lather really well. One of the things that I would say is, people say that this lathers easier and faster than any of these other brushes. In my opinion, that's a load of horse manure. I don't see a dime's worth of difference in how well any of these brushes lather soap. Now, the method and technique of lathering the soap with the particular brushes is a little bit different, in that the water balance has to be handled in different kinds of ways. With this brush, you can end up with too dry of a brush to get any lather. I had a subscriber talk to me about an issue he was having with lathering, and he said that he soaked the bristles or wetted them really good, and then he turned the brush and squeezed all the water out of it. Well, if you do that with a synthetic, the brush is going to be too dry, and you're gonna need to add a little bit of water to it in order to actually pick up soap off the puck and in order to lather. So you have to understand that the type of brush that it is going to dictate how you deal with the water. Okay, And what I would tell you is if you're on a puck and you can't get soap out of it, put a little bit more water on your brush and try it again. But anyway, they don't get gorged with water, but they dry really fast, like half an hour, 25 minutes. This brush is dry. In my bathroom with high humidity, I can sit it on the shelf and as early as 20-25 minutes from then, this brush will be completely dry. So they make good travel brushes as well. If I were to suggest a brush to a beginner, and this is just a suggestion, I hope that you will try as many of these as you think you want to pick out what's best for you and what your budget can afford. Just stay away from pure badgers. Okay. These two brushes, a synthetic and a boar, would be my first preference or my first recommendation. Either one of these for a beginner, because they both have qualities that lend themselves to beginners really well. And once you understand the difference between how they handle water, this one doesn't keep water, this one hogs water. So there's gonna be a difference in how you treat the puck to draw soap from it between the two brushes. The last brush that I would look at that I don't recommend for a beginner is horsehair. Now, this is the only type of horsehair that I have. This is a V-long, I don't remember the name, but it's like 5 or 6 numbers after it. But this is a dark horsehair. There is an almost blonde horsehair as well. And there are different grades, and I don't know enough about the two of them to really actually tell you what's what. This is the only one I've got. It was, I either bought it or it was gifted to me. I can't remember. I've had it for so long. The thing about a horse brush is this one has still got a bit of scritch. Some people like that. And when I mean scritchy, it can be a bit scratchy on your face, even when wet. Now, some people like that. Okay? Some people don't. It doesn't matter to me because I'm not going to do circular motions with this brush. If I use this brush, I'll use painting strokes. Okay? Most of the time, if I use this, I'm going to bowl lather because I know the characteristic of the brush, and I think it feels fantastic like this and don't feel so great like that. So, but these, in my opinion, are kind of a cross between a badger and a boar. They soak up a little bit of water like a boar does, but not very much more than maybe a badger. And so they work kind of in between the two, but they're a good brush, and they're a good option if you want to do painting strokes. And they're not very expensive. You can get them that are expensive, but they're generally not very expensive. And so those are the 4 that you will encounter. And the thing of it is, what I would tell you, people will say, well, get this kind of brush, get that kind of brush. When you first start, just get a good brush. Get a good synthetic, get a good boar. And the reason I mention those 2 types is they're the least expensive of the 4 types of brushes that you will run into. And when you're starting, you usually don't have the budget. It's only when you get in the hobby a whole bunch, then you start justifying $60, $70, $80 for some of us. I don't pay that much for. I'm sorry, I'm not paying that for a brush. But most of the higher end brushes that I own were given to me. They were gifts. But then we start to justify, well, $100 for a brush. Oh, that's okay. I really need that, that kind of deal. But when you first start, you're thinking economy of scale. You're thinking, cheap. One of the things people do is they lie to you and say you'll save money. You're not going to save money. you're going to want more and more and more. So, but what I would recommend is start out with a good bore. That would be my first recommendation, because you can, not only is it a good quality brush that will last a very long time, but you can experience the breaking in. One of the other things about the synthetic, if you look at the center, I've had this brush 5-6 years, and that's beautiful, right? Well, you're going to see a lot of synthetic brushes with a big old flipping hole in the center, and it's because people have lathered with it, and they've either put it away with soap all in it, or they've just washed it out and thrown it on the counter. You need to take a wide tooth comb. Once you've washed this clean and dried the handle and the knot on a towel, and comb the hairs after you use this brush, and you won't have a big hole in it. The bores, well, they might start looking kind of like that, okay? But you're not going to end up generally with a hole in them, okay? And they're very durable, and they are a really good lathering brush. And so my number one recommendation would be, for a beginner, would be a good bore. And then after that, if you don't fancy using animal hair, if the fact that the piggy died for baking for somebody bothers you, you know, the only thing that's sustainable naturally really is probably horse hair, because they're not killing the horse for that. But if that kind of thing bothers you, then the badger and the boar are not going to be brushes you're going to want to go with. Go with a good synthetic. Maggard synthetics. This is a Maggard. I think it's like 12 or 14 bucks, and they have several different types of synthetic knots now. Well worth the money. Fantastic brush. But yeah, I would go with either a boar or a synthetic, whatever your bent is. Understanding that with a boar, you're going to have a little bit of a smell, and you're going to have a break-in period. But that, in my opinion, is part of the charm of traditional shaving. And one of the reasons, like, that I shave with a straight razor is it's not just that it's the finest shave you'll ever get, and it is, but it's because there's an art to it and a beauty to it that goes beyond just shaving my face. So anyway, that's my breakdown on brushes. I hope it wasn't too convoluted and confusing, and that it helped you. Bless you. I'll talk to you later.